Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's Lunch and Learn for Leaders and those who want to be. I'm Jill Valdez, your host and owner of Link Consulting. Today, we're going to dive into a vital aspect of leadership. We're going to talk about communication. Specifically, we're going to focus on enhancing your speaking and listening skills to become a more effective leader. Effective communication, it is the cornerstone of great leadership. It builds trust, it fosters collaboration, it drives engagement, and without clear and compelling communication, even the best ideas can fall flat. So again, one of the things about effective communication is it builds trust. Trust, anybody who's hung around me long enough has heard me say this, trust is the foundation of any successful team. When leaders communicate transparently and consistently, it builds trust. And then team members feel confident that they know what's going on and that their leader has their best interests at heart. Strong relationships are also built on effective communication. When leaders actively listen and engage with their team, they foster a sense of connection and mutual respect. Clear communication is essential for collaboration. It ensures that everyone understands their roles, responsibilities, how their work contributes to the larger goals of the team. There is nothing more frustrating than hearing different messages about what I'm supposed to be doing if I'm in a job, what my responsibilities are, who I'm accountable to, what I'm supposed to be accomplishing. I can't collaborate with other people if I'm not sure what the heck I'm supposed to be doing. And effective communication, it helps to resolve conflicts and align efforts. I've had the privilege of working with a client recently, and when I first got there, there was a lot of conflict between different managers. And being able to help them facilitate conversations to really dive down to what was at the core of the conflict, that happened because we started having effective communication. And it was really exciting to see. I mean, you couldn't quite see the actual light bulbs going off, but it was pretty exciting to see as they were getting like, oh, if we ask questions, oh, if I tell a little bit more about what's going on with me and why this made me feel this way, or how I perceived that person's actions, that effective communication, it built together this team. And now they're not having the conflict. They actually have had a couple of other issues come up over the last couple of months. And in that time, they've gone back to using the communication skills that they had been learning to resolve the conflict. And it ended up not being a big deal, didn't need a bunch of facilitation from other people. They were able to resolve it themselves, which was wonderful. Leaders who communicate effectively can keep their teams engaged. They share the vision, the goals, the progress, and all of this helps team members see the value in their work, and it also helps them stay motivated. Speaking of motivation, motivational communication, this inspires and it engages a team. Leaders who recognize and appreciate their team's efforts foster a positive and productive work environment. We've talked before about how to show appreciation. I've recommended that book, The 5 Languages of Appreciation. But if you just only have the time or like the ability to say thank you or to give a shout out, that is still motivating communication. That is going to inspire others. And it's a way for you to show that you really appreciate the work that your team is doing. Good communication, it ensures that the right information is shared at the right time, leading to better decision-making. It allows leaders to gather input, consider different perspectives, and make informed choices. Have you ever tried to make a decision and you didn't have all the facts?
Oh, yeah.
How'd that go for you?
Not good. It slowed, really, it's kind of like a, slow down because, people start putting up barriers, etc. It's like, wait, you don't know the whole story, so.
Right. Yeah. And you, as a leader, if you don't have all the facts and you find yourself having to backpedal a little bit and like, oh, thought we were going to be able to do this, but I didn't have all the information. And yeah. So again, effective communication, super important. Like when communication channels are open, problems can be identified and addressed quickly. And then leaders, they get to facilitate discussions that lead to effective solutions, and it involves the team in the process. And then communication is key to fostering a culture of innovation. We talked about innovation last week and the importance of innovation in any workplace. By encouraging open dialogue and idea sharing, leaders can tap into the creativity and expertise of their team. At no point should a leader ever think, I have to be the smartest person in the room. I have to have all the answers. I have to do all the talking. If you have a team that is creative and has different opinions, and I guarantee you that you actually do, making sure that you have that communication space for them to be able to share those things so that you as a company can continue to grow, you as a leader can continue to grow, and things don't stagnate. During times of change, clear communication helps to manage uncertainty and build support. I know of a company that recently went through a merger, and I was talking with the president and asking how things were going. And she said, well, I think things are going okay, but I know that everybody is really on edge. There's so much uncertainty as to whether, because of this merger, are they going to lose their job? What's going to be happening next year? And so that clear communication, which she was clearly communicating any information that she had, but it's so incredibly important. Leaders who communicate the reasons for change, the benefits, and the plan, they can lead their teams through transitions smoothly. Again, I've talked about this before. When people understand why, when you are sharing with them and bringing them on board with the change and talking them through that as soon as possible, that just sets you up for better success as you're navigating and leading your team through a time of change. So by improving our communication skills, we can become better leaders and we create a more positive and productive work environment. So let's move on to the components of effective communication. First of all, there's speaking and listening. Communication, it's not just about speaking, it's also about listening. So we're going to explore some techniques to improve both. Speak with clarity and confidence. As leaders, our messages need to be clear and to the point, and they also don't have to go on forever and ever and ever. Avoid jargon and long-winded explanations. Make your point quickly and clearly. If you make people think too much about the words that you're saying, if you're taking them on a journey and they're getting lost on your verbal journey, they're not going to understand. They're not going to walk away with the message that you want them to have walked away with. And frankly, that means that effective communication didn't actually happen. So make sure that you're keeping it clear and doing so quickly. When you speak, make sure that you speak with confidence. There's nothing a little more unnerving than a leader who is talking about a change or is standing up in their leadership role and making a presentation, or even just sitting one-on-one and talking and showing that they're not confident in their role. Confidence in your voice and your body language, this can significantly impact how your message is received. Stand tall, make eye contact, and project your voice. What are some things that you've seen that contribute to positive and clear communication?
Just exactly what you said. Just concise, to the point. Don't make it complicated. But then two, pause and kind of assess, the reaction of the person you're talking with or persons you're talking with, and allow that two-way communication or be a good, no, in other words, switch from speaking to listening. So yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Speaking, communication is not just speaking, it's receiving back as well. Earlier, before we started the presentation, you and I were talking about Patrick Lencioni and how he tends to use story when he is getting his points across and when he's teaching about leadership. Stories are powerful. They are a powerful tool in leadership communication. They make your message relatable and more memorable. So, unlike facts and figures, stories engage emotions and they create a lasting impact. So, let's dive into a little bit why storytelling is such an effective leadership tool for communication. First of all, stories make complex concepts easier to understand and relate to. When you share a story, you create a connection with your audience, helping them see themselves in the narrative. And this relatability makes your message more impactful. People are more likely to remember stories than abstract concepts or even data points. There is nothing like sitting in a meeting and somebody's just rattling off like, oh, in the third quarter, we did blah, 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 blah. And here's our margin and, here's our retention rate. And those are important pieces of information that you want your team to get and to be able to understand. And each of them actually tells a story. So an effective communicator, when they're talking with their team, it's important to figure out how to take these abstract concepts, how to take these data points and wrap them into a story, because stories stick with us. They make us engage multiple parts of our brain and it makes the information more memorable. And then sharing personal stories, that actually builds trust and credibility. When leaders are open and authentic about their experiences, it humanizes them and it fosters a sense of trust within the team. The perception of a leader, especially by the rest of their team, is, oh, they've got it all together. They don't know my struggle. They don't understand what it's like to have a hard time with the work that we're doing. And yet, if you sit down and you talk with any leader, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I totally remember that. I remember what that feels like. I may look like I'm all put together, but I have things going on in my life. I put my pants on the same as everybody else. And so it's really valuable to building that connection and to build that trust. And really, it creates a sense of buy-in. When you are a leader, and of course you're presenting and you come across confident, and yet you talk about something that you've struggled with, you're open and telling about your stories, about your growth. Those are things where people go, oh, and it actually makes them want to follow you even more. So let's talk about some common barriers to communication. One of the most common barriers to effective communication is making assumptions. We all know about assumptions and what the word means. When we assume that others know what we mean, or if we assume that they share our perspective or they have the same information we do, it can lead to misunderstandings and miscommunication. Always clarify and verify to ensure mutual understanding. There is nothing wrong with saying, hey, can you repeat back to me what you think that I said so that I can make sure that we're on the same page and I'm not assuming that you understood what I said? What are some other ways that you can make sure and overcome assumptions and making sure that people actually have heard rather than assuming that they've heard?
Talk to people. I mean, after you say something, it's like, talk to them and allow them to give you feedback, input, or whatever. It's like, what do you think about that? Or, do you have any ideas about how we could do whatever, getting feedback in that way. So there again.
Yeah,
being quiet and listening. Also, too, I wanted to ask you is, I mean, sometimes, communicate, you're talking about all the facts and figures type of thing. A lot of times I think what, you know, I could do is if I wanted to share that type of information, maybe I could present it in a written form or a handout or something like that. And then just, if you have any questions, ask about it, but focus more on telling the stories and things that people can relate to. And so, yeah, I don't know.
yeah, that's
Just a
that's
thought.
that's a great idea. Giving them the opportunity to digest that material in a different way rather than having to sit and listen to somebody say drone on through the stuff. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Another common barrier is distractions. And whether that is physical or mental, they can really hinder effective communication. External distractions like noise or interruptions. I've often thought over the last few months as we've been doing these lunch and learns for leaders, I have them scheduled on Thursdays. Thursdays happen to be landscaping day, and I never know for sure where the landscapers are going to be. Sometimes they'll be like right there, and I'm like, oh, I don't want them to be a distraction from the teaching, but that's one of those external distractions of noises. I have to put my puppy in his bed so that he's not jumping up and wanting to be a part of the conversation. Sometimes there's internal distractions like stress or preoccupation with other thoughts. Those things prevent us from fully engaging in a conversation. It's important to minimize distractions to focus on the interaction. When you're going in to sit and you're going to talk with your team, I know that we all have these, but taking your phone and just, if you absolutely have to have it out and can't have it put away, having it on the table, but having it face down. I even encourage people, set special tones on your phone so that you know who's texting you or who's calling you, because then you can ignore ones that aren't important. We live in a technology-driven age where it's very possible to put on focus settings and then being able to say, okay, I may be in this focus setting, but if my family needs to get a hold of me, they can still get a hold of me. That allows you to minimize those distractions, put things aside, and be able to just simply focus on what's actually happening at the time. And then emotional blocks, such as anger, fear, or frustration, those can impede our ability to communicate effectively. These emotions can cloud our judgment. They distort our message and it hinders our ability to listen. I've been married for 31 years, and there are times where we've gotten into conversations and disagreements, and it's almost like this cloud comes over my brain and I'm not able to think. And I'm like, what did he just say? What did I just say? What are we talking about? That's what happens when emotions get strong, is there's actual reactions within our body that cloud our ability to effectively communicate. Recognizing and managing these emotions is crucial for clear communication. I was sharing with a team a couple of weeks ago that sometimes if you are in a disagreement and if there is some conflict going on, it is okay to say, oh, this is escalating and I need to take 2 minutes. I need to take 5 minutes. I need to take 30 minutes to just take a walk and take a breath and get my emotions under control. Otherwise, this conversation is going to go way off the rails and might take us quite a while to come back from. So how you can overcome those barriers is by creating a conducive environment for communication. Creating a conducive environment for communication includes choosing a quiet, comfortable space, free from distractions, and ensuring that both parties are ready and willing to communicate. So setting the right tone and atmosphere can really make a big difference. When you're communicating, especially when you're communicating as a leader, be aware of nonverbal cues. Nonverbal cues like body language, facial expressions, eye contact, they play a significant role in communication. I was in a meeting today, and it's with a client, and it was with like the top 2 leaders of the company that I was working with. And I really appreciated the CEO. He's very similar to me. He's a high D on the disc, and he's very direct, and he appreciates very direct. So it makes our conversations really, really easy. But he was talking, and they were having this conversation. I was kind of observing it a little bit. And he could tell by my face that I was thinking something and that I had something to say. Those nonverbal cues, we have to be aware of those. It lets us know if somebody's completely checked out, or where they're at in the conversation, or if something I said isn't being taken correctly. So being aware of your own nonverbal signals and reading of others can help you better understand the message and convey your own more effectively. I talk quite a lot about, I joke quite a lot about that my face probably communicates way more than my words. There are times where, back when I was working in the corporate world, I'm like, I have to turn off my camera because I just cannot shut my face up. What about you? What are some other ways that you think that we can overcome some of those barriers for effective communication?
Yeah, sometimes you just have to walk away. I've had to do that a few times, and it's like, let's take a break and come back and discuss this like after lunch or whatever, or give me some time to think about what you were talking about, and let me see if I can get you some answers, type of thing. So just being willing to take a break, I think is really important. And then personally, just sometimes you can get, just in conversations, you can get so agitated that, it shows in your body language, it shows on your face. But then too, I mean, it may cause the person you're trying to communicate with to just kind of tune you out, shut down, whatever. So there again, being aware of body language, and don't just keep going when you just should say, shut up.
Yeah. Yeah. I was telling some people yesterday, we were talking about disabilities and how it impacts other people, and talking about the fact that because they were talking about a girl who was raised with, her parents are both deaf, and just the impact that had on her. And she was like, oh yeah, it was so great because I could sit there and I could sass off to them and they wouldn't hear it. I mean, I laughed, I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
But then I was like, my mom was blind, and yet, I kid you not, she could hear me roll my eyes. Like, she'd be talking and I'm 12 years old. I'm a sassy little booger. And I'm like rolling my eyes at her. And she's like, don't you roll your eyes at me. I know she didn't see it.
Yeah.
It's like, how did you know that? And she's like, oh, I heard you. It's like, oh my goodness.
They have a sixth sense. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then finally, it's really important for leaders to practice empathy. Empathy involves understanding and sharing the feelings of others by putting yourself in someone else's shoes, taking the time to better understand their perspective, and then respond appropriately. And empathy, it helps in building rapport and trust, but it really makes communication more effective.
I think keeping the questions open-ended. So I mean, somebody may say something and it's like, so tell me more, encourage them to share more about what they're thinking or what they mean, or about their concerns or whatever. So just
Yeah.
Rather than being a lecturer and expect somebody to just sit there and be quiet and listen to you. So
Yeah, that's such a great point. Thank you for sharing that. Asking a question like, can you tell me more about that?
yeah,
And some people are like, oh, that's so woo-woo. Yeah, it is woo-woo. And it's how you have effective communication and how you make things happen.
right.
Yeah.
It's like just hearing what they feel or how they feel or what they're thinking in their own words. And
Yeah,
then two, I mean, sometimes you can kind of mirror their language or whatever. So
absolutely. Yeah. Well, today we've explored the crucial role of communication in leadership. We discussed how effective communication builds trust and it fosters collaboration, it drives engagement, it enhances decision making, and it promotes innovation. And we looked into some practical techniques for speaking clearly and listening actively and overcoming some common communication barriers. I want to thank you all for your participation and your engagement today. I hope you found this session valuable and are inspired to implement some of these strategies in your teams. I invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn or learn more about how I support confident leaders of a committed team providing stellar services by heading over to linkconsulting.info. When you go to my website, you'll have the opportunity to download my free ebook. Remember, great leaders are great communicators. And by enhancing your speaking and listening skills, you will not only become a more effective leader, but you will also inspire and empower those around you.